to have you. And before we jump into understanding personal finances, do you mind running through a professional summary of how you got to where you are today?
Sure. Well, thank you, ladies, for having me. I'm really excited. When Alex first asked me if I could speak on this podcast, I've never spoken on a podcast before. And of course, I'm like, yes, 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 especially because it was for Alex. Have a ton of respect for her. I think she's awesome. Have a great work ethic. And Isabella, I'm sure you're the same way. So I'm excited to be here. I'm thankful that my first podcast is with you ladies. So thank you for having me. And I think we're going to have a good time. So me, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. If you had asked me growing up if I thought that I would be, in corporate America right now, or if I would even be on this podcast with you talking about personal finances, I probably would have laughed at you. I wanted to be an actress or a dancer. I always like, oh, I'm going to be Oprah. That was always what I wanted, right? But obviously, life had other plans, or God had other plans for me. So born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, went to college at the University of Hartford in Connecticut. And it was right around that time where I would say that I really started to get passionate about personal finances. The summer leading up to me going to college, my mom had lost her job. I'm raised by a single mom. I'm one of 4 girls. So a bunch of anxiety that summer, right? Didn't know if I was going to be able to go to college. Didn't have the best grades in high school, but that's besides the point, because who cares about, what you did in high school? It's about where you are now, right? So didn't have the best grades in high school. They were decent. Like, I wasn't an F or a D student, but I wasn't getting A's like my sisters were. So I didn't have all of the best scholarships. So my mom had to take out loans for me to go to school. But with her losing her job that summer, it just seemed unlikely. Like, will she be able to even get approved for a loan for me to go to school? So it was right around that time where I started to think about, well, dang, we're in this financial situation. How could we have prevented it? Or like, what could I have done differently? Should I have gotten a job? How should I have been saving? Should I have been saving for college? All of these different things started to come to mind at that point. And that's when I decided that ultimately I did end up going to school. My mom was able to get approved for the loan, and that changed everything about me, my motivation, my drive, what I was interested in. I decided to major in business, in finance and accounting, and took my grades seriously. My mom sacrificed for me to be able to go to school. So didn't play any type of ghetto games when I went to college, graduated magna cum laude, and ended up getting an internship while I was in college with UTC. Once I graduated in 2013, I joined the financial leadership program at UTC, which is where you complete 4 rotations in different financial disciplines. So it can be accounting, FP&A, tax. There's a bunch of different things you can do in finance and accounting. So I did 4 rotations. I did them in 4 different states. I lived in Connecticut, I lived in Illinois, I lived in North Carolina, and then I moved to Florida and got engaged to my now husband, who's an engineer at Pratt & Whitney. And when I moved to Florida, I would say is when I really said, I need to take this teaching personal finance or financial literacy to other people. Because during this time while I'm in college, right, my mom didn't have a job right away. So I had to rely on credit. I didn't always make the best decisions. So I started to think about, well, how many other Kweyahs are there out there? And what can I do to make things better? So I started helping my friends, helping my family. And I started to see that what I was teaching them was actually helping them. So I'm like, oh, Kweyah, you do know what you're doing, right? And I'm really, really passionate about it, because I think when you can have a handle on your personal finances, it changed the trajectory of your life, your family's life, and a whole generation. So it's really important. That's why I'm here talking to you ladies about it today. I do still have a full-time job in corporate America. I work for Otis Elevator Company. I'm a senior manager in accounting and controls, and I do enjoy that too. Finance is finance when you work for a corporation, right? You're balancing your books, you are analyzing the P&L, but outside of work, I do focus a lot on teaching personal finances and helping people achieve their personal goals. And through my work, through my corporate work, I'm able to meet people where I can help them, because it doesn't really matter what your background is. We can all benefit from some financial literacy.
I love what you said about how many other Kweyahs are there out there, because that is a huge part of why we wanted to start Upswing. So many of us are encountering very similar challenges in life, and sometimes it seems like you're the only one who's experiencing it, even though you know in the back of your head there must be more people who are going through this. It's just difficult to find the information to take the next step. So getting into the nitty-gritty of personal finance, could you define for me just what personal finance is, the topic that we're going to be talking about today?
So personal finances, and this is going to sound really crazy, right? Personal finances is really personal. It's different for everyone, right? But I guess if I had to define it, I would say personal finances or financial literacy is learning the skills, developing the skills and gaining the knowledge, so that way you can make effective choices and take effective action, so that way you can achieve your personal goals or your community goals. We don't always recognize that our financial decisions impact our lives in all aspects of our lives, and what we do and don't do can determine that next step, or what we want to do, the career that we want to have, the house that we want to buy, the business that we want to start, the school that we want to send our kids to.
Before we get too deep into the topic, if someone wanted to contact you for assistance, for insight, for just more help in getting their personal finances in order, is there anywhere that they could find you or that you would want them to contact you on?
Yeah, so right now they can contact me via Instagram at The Money Cook. Also on Twitter at The Money Cook. Yeah, that's the best way to contact me right now.
You know what I was thinking before I go on to this next question? Kweyah, when you there's, I feel empowered. And everything you were saying, I was like, yes. Like,
well, thank you.
She's a force of nature.
Someone wants financial advice, but they don't have money to spend on that advice. What best steps do you think they should take?
That's a great question, because I was in the same boat years ago, right? Thankfully, you know, the internet is amazing. There's a lot of stuff out there on the internet, but you have to be careful, right? Because you have people who are putting information out there that, you know, like I said, personal finances is personal. So you'll have someone who will write a blog and they'll put some advice in there, but that advice may not be for you, you know? And I had to learn that too, because if you don't, like, I don't have $100,000 to, you know, do what that blog is telling me to do. So sometimes you have to do a little bit more digging and find someone who's at that place where you are right now. I think you first have to determine, I don't have money, but you still have goals, right? What are your financial goals? What do you want to do? How do you want to get money, right? And then that's how you start doing your research. But first you have to know what you want.
Do you have any suggested websites, YouTube tutorials, or books that you would suggest people look into?
So my husband and I, we really took a liking to Dave Ramsey. He has something called the Financial Peace University. He outlines, you know, baby steps and everything like that, a way to aggressively pay down debt. How do you invest and things like that? Now, you do have to pay for that, but you can find a lot of his information on the internet. Just like, you know, surface level, and you can purchase the books on Amazon for maybe like 10 or 20 bucks. I follow some dope women on Instagram and social media who I think are great. My Fab Finance is one website that I followed. She gave a ton of great information. I can't think of a lot of the women off the top of my head, but I can send it to you guys and you can, you know, please share that information. But there are so many people who are just as passionate about teaching personal finance, and they put out a lot of content. So really all you have to do is maybe go on Instagram and type, you know, finance, personal finance, or even in YouTube, and it'll pull up a bunch of information. And you just have to find that person who speaks to your soul, who speaks to your goals, because everyone is not going to do that. And sometimes you may feel like, well, maybe finances is just not for me, or maybe me getting my finances in order is not meant to be. It is. You just have to find that person who can motivate you and who can get you there.
So much of the time, we go to college in hopes of having a quote unquote better life. But in doing so, we're in a lot of student debt. Are there any keys that can help people climb out of student debt?
Whew. Man, I think student debt is a huge problem in this country. We have friends who, went to college and they may be working in retail and not doing what it is that they want to do. I think the answer to student loan is, and this is my personal opinion, I think that our government needs to do a little something to take that load off of people. But I also think we have to start having a more proactive approach to college. When I was applying to college, it was just like, you got to go to college. That was my mom. You getting out of this house, right? We didn't have the conversation about how much college is going to cost. We didn't have the conversation about community college versus state college versus private schools. You know what I'm saying? So now thinking back on it, and now that I have my own kid, we're going to have those conversations. What is it that you want to do? Okay, well, you want to be a doctor, or maybe you want to study finance. You want to go to this great school that costs $50,000 a year. Well, can you do your first 2 years out of community college and get all of your prerequisites out of the way? And we can pay for that out of pocket. Maybe you can work part-time and we can save. Maybe you can get an internship, get in with a company who may, assist paying for college. I think the answer comes before you even get into the debt, personally. I think for the people who have the student loan debt, it's one of those things that you have to try to climb your way out of. I do think if you have student loan debt as well as consumer debt, meaning car payments, credit card debt, I would take care of your consumer debt first. Not because it's like the student loans and you don't want to pay it, but usually your consumer debt have higher interest rate, where your student loans probably average about 6%. Your credit card might be 20%. So you want to pay that down, so that way over the course of a certain amount of years, you're not paying more money in interest on your credit card.
When we talk about saving, could you walk me through any little changes that I could make so I could start to save money if that isn't something that I've been thinking about?
Yes, let me tell you. So saving, I think, is tough, especially for everyone right now. You would think in normal circumstances, right? COVID has, put a lot of people on unemployment, right? A lot of people lost their jobs. And the reality is some jobs aren't coming back, even post-COVID, right? So you would think more people would be saving now, but I think more people are spending. To be honest with you, I've been spending a little bit more, right? You just need to feel good. And usually when you need to feel good and you're stuck in the house and you need to feel good, you're going to go online and you're going to start shopping online. Or maybe normally you would have just bought tilapia at the store. You might start buying lobster because you want to feel good, right? So much seems to be going wrong. So the things that we can control, we usually overdo it to make ourselves feel good. But I think the little things that my family, what we started to do was saving for unexpected expenses, saving for expected unexpected expenses, right? So I call them sinking funds. So there are certain things that is just going to happen, right? You had your car for 6 or 7 years, something might happen to your car. So every month I put aside, let's say $150 towards my car sinking fund. Now, I may not need that $150 that month, but every month I'll save that $150. And then when something happens, like I need new tires, I have maybe $600 in this account that's for my car. I don't have to now run and put it on credit because I've already been saving for this unexpected expense. Same thing with, trips. We want to take an anniversary trip for our 5-year anniversary. So we've been saving for this for the last 2 years. So we have an anniversary trip sinking fund where we put money there every month. Miscellaneous, birthdays, gifts that we want to give people. A lot of our friends now are getting married or having babies, so baby showers. So we just save, for those types of things. Before we had a baby, we were putting a little bit of money aside for the baby, household items, just really thinking about your life holistically and what do you spend money on? How can you save for that? Now, For the people who aren't saving at all, or you feel like you don't have the money to save, I think you have to take inventory of where your money is going. Take your bank statement or your credit card statement, wherever you spend most of your money, and take a month and literally go through it as if the IRS was auditing you. So you pretend you're the IRS and you audit yourself, and you say, what have I spent on food? What did I spend on bills? What did I spend on rent? Take inventory so you can know where your money is going. And then once you do that, you can say, did I really spend $1,000 on groceries last month? Do I need to spend $1,000 on groceries? Can my grocery bill be $600 a month and I have $400 to save? Or, you know, was it someone's birthday? Did we go out to an expensive dinner? Maybe my grocery budget needs to be $600. Maybe I need to put $200 aside for entertainment, and then I save another $200. But you have to first take inventory. It also goes back to your goals. We all save when we want to do something, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want to take a trip, you're going to be like, all right, well, let me save. I need to save money. I need to put money aside.
I'm loving this. When someone is starting to set goals, are there any general good goals that you could set on like a weekly, bi-monthly, monthly, maybe even a yearly basis other than saving for a trip?
One goal can be, hey, if you have student loans that you want to pay down faster, right? I think, and usually when I work with people, the first thing that I ask them is, what do you want? And to be honest with you, a lot of us can't answer that question. I think it's because sometimes we think so short term. Okay, what do you want in the next year? How much money do you want saved? A common goal is, I want to have at least $1,000 aside for an emergency. So that means if you go to Starbucks every day and you spend $10 at Starbucks, maybe you make your coffee at home, and then Fridays is your Starbucks day. It also kind of gives you something to look forward to, right? Yes, Friday, I'm gonna get my, you know what? Friday, do Starbucks and Chick-fil-A for lunch. And then you'll always look forward to that Friday, right? I think that that's kind of the little things that you have to do. Smaller goals, right? I want to save $1,000. Some people want to say, you know what, I'm nervous, this COVID thing happened, I was furloughed, I'm on unemployment. How do I make sure that the next pandemic or the next crazy thing that happened, how do I have my 3 to 6 months of expenses saved just in case I lose my job? It can start with little changes, like every time I get paid, I'm going to put money aside for myself. Whatever I decide to use that money for is for me. You're paying yourself. You pay your bills and you pay yourself.
I'm a color coordinating kind of list making individual. As you're speaking and you're talking about putting money away, whether it's groceries, it's student debt, it's God forbid another COVID situation happens, or it's because I want a bottle of wine and some fine chocolates on,
right.
On a not so good day. Do I put all that money in my bank account and then have like a Google Docs where I've color coordinated what it is? Or do I know in my mind, or am I shoveling that money like in separate shoes or something? Like, what am I doing?
No, that is a great question, because in my household, my husband's an engineer, right? So everything needs to be like digital, right? So he uses an app, or we use an app. You need a budget, YNAB. And there you can track, you know, what the balance is for each of your sinking funds or for your savings and everything else. I'm like you. There's something about putting it in Excel or putting it in Google Docs and having it separated out, right? Like I like to say, okay, well, we have $500 in this account this month. These are all the transactions. It's like this satisfaction. You're kind of like, all right, I'm good. Like I worked it out. I did the math and it's all good. One of the ladies that I work with, she actually has a separate savings account for her sinking fund. I don't do it that way. What I do is we have a sinking fund savings account, and all of the money for the sinking funds go there. But we use the app, and I use my Excel to track what we're spending. And usually how I do it is we use a credit card. I don't even wait for the credit card bill to be due. I pay it off like the next week. As soon as the transaction clears, I pay it off because, you know, there's some perks to using a credit card too. We get pretty good cash back, or sometimes if you like to travel and you have a travel card and you want to get those travel points, you can do that too. It really all depends on you, whatever makes you feel comfortable and confident, because that's the thing. When you put yourself in a good financial position, you feel good. You know, you have a certain swag about yourself. You move different. You're not going to accept certain things from certain people. I know people who are in terrible situations at work, but they can't leave because they're not in a good financial position. Having your personal finances in line allows you the flexibility to live your life and to not have to be, you know, confined or restrained by anyone or anything. Even people who stay in relationships or stay in marriages because they don't have that, you know, safety net. This is real, and this is the world that we live in. Men too, but I'm a feminist, and a lot of women go through that. I know women who has gone through that, where it's like, you know, I can't leave because what am I gonna do? How am I gonna eat? How am I gonna take care of my children? And it shouldn't have to be that way. When you have your money together, you have that freedom. You know, you wake up a little lighter. I don't have enough money where I can just quit my job and just be like, ooh, you know. But if something were to happen, I'm comfortable for a couple of months. I can breathe and I can say, you know what, God, whatever you have next for me, let's figure that out.
It's really important to have that power where you can make the decision of how you want to be treated. And the bottom line is that having money and having your personal finances in order and being able to take care of yourself is incredibly powerful.
Right.
And Kweyah is here to teach us how to do it. We all have that relative that like stuffs cash under the mattress instead of having a savings account. And I know that when I was working like in the hospitality industry, waiting tables, I would get cash tips. It's very easy to just kind of keep that cash outside of your bank account. Could you share with us some of the reasons that you should have a designated savings account?
It's protecting your money in a sense. It's insured up into a certain dollar amount. Even if you did have, you know, $50,000 in the bank, if someone hacked you and tried to take that money, you will get that money back. If you have $50,000 in your house and your house gets robbed, you're likely not getting that $50,000 back in cash. That's one thing in insurance purposes. The second thing is you want your money to earn money. Your money is not going to earn money in your shoebox underneath your bed. Yes, you feel like it's safe because it's close to you. And if you need it, you know, you can roll over and get it, but you want to try to put your money in a high yield savings account. Usually those savings accounts aren't like your big banks. So you want your money to make money. You want your money to be insured. You want it to be protected. And I also think another reason to have a savings account, or why it's important to have a savings account, is because you really see your money grow. And I think for me, that's motivating. It's almost like tracking your progress. We talk about those goals, right? Wow, just in February, I only had $25. In June, I have $500. I'm doing something. It's so easy to put $500 underneath your bed and then take $100 when you need it. And you're not really keeping track of the ins and outs, what's going in, what's going out. So you're more likely to spend it or not know where it goes. And that's the worst thing, to, you know, have some money and then you go back looking for it and it's only $2 when you started with $1,000. If I can say the top 3 things, it will be insurance. You want your money to make money, and you definitely want to see your progress and be able to track your ins and outs and what you're spending your money on. You should always track your expenses monthly. I'm a little extra. I track my expenses weekly because I'm just, like I said, I'm really passionate about this. So like my downtime, I get a glass of wine and I look at my budget. My husband is always laughing at me. He's like, oh, you're doing your favorite thing. The only thing that goes into a savings account is our emergency savings. Right now, you know, we're in the market to buy a house. So we have our house savings and then we have our sinking funds. Everything else is usually kept in the checking account. And it depends on your behavior. One thing with personal finances and how to make it work for you, you have to be real with the type of person that you are. I'm disciplined enough where I can go and use a credit card and stay within my budget when I go to the grocery store. There are some people, they're putting it on a credit card with a $10,000 limit, and they're going to be like, you know, it's been a really rough week. So, you know, let me get these 4 bottles of wine let's throw some ice cream sandwiches in there. Oh, getting things that's not necessarily within the budget. And you know what? If that's what you need, it's fine. But you also have to be willing to put that money back. Or that money's going to come from someplace else. Where's it going to come from? Are you going to take money from your household? Are you going to take money from someplace else to cover that? I think if you're that person that don't have a lot of self-control, and that's fine, because that is a lot of us, then you can have a checking account, late fees, overdraft fees, paying interest, all of that stuff. Take inventory of where your money is going, and you see what you're paying in interest or late fees you may have had, overdraft fees or whatever. You will be really mad at the end of the year of how much money you could have saved.
I also suggest that if you're like me, go to your subscriptions on your iPhone and make sure you cancel every single subscription, because I forget about a lot of things and I get really bent out of shape when I'm broke and then I subscribed accidentally for a whole new year. So as you're doing that, also remember your subscriptions.
that Isabella, I'm glad you said that. That is really important, because a lot of times too, we have free trials with things, Spotify, whatever it is, different Disney Plus, and we get free trials and then we forget about it. So one thing that I always do when I sign up for a free trial and I know that I don't want to keep this service, I set a reminder in my phone for a week before. Cancel. Because again, life happens, right? And then at the time you're kind of like, oh, it's just $8.99. But let me tell you, $8.99 over 10 months, that's $90, right? That could have gone to something else. That could have been your wine or something, or something that you really wanted. It's all of these little things that we can do to improve our financial position. And I think we don't realize, especially our generation, the credit card, just put it on my credit card, do this, do that, free trial. Oh, it's only $5.99. It kills me when people say it's only. It's only it's $6 that you're gonna be paying. Are you even gonna get that money's worth? I think we have to start to look at money as valuable as it is, right? And then we won't just say, oh, it's just $6, it's just $10, because over time that adds up.
So as we're kind of going through the years, like when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, when you're in your 40s, are there any key benchmarks that you should be, I hate to say that you should be hitting because everyone's path is different, but are there any key benchmarks that you should be hitting through your 20s, 30s, and 40s?
That's a great question. A lot of us are in different places in our lives. When I was in my early 20s, I wasn't really thinking about getting married and buying a house and stuff like that. But I had friends who were married at 22. When you're in your early 20s, maybe just graduating college and you get in with a good company and they have a 401k, invest in your 401k, contribute to your 401k, especially if the company is matching, right? Even if you just do the bare minimum, it's compounded interest, right? Over time, that money is going to grow. I have some people tell me, oh, well, the stock market is doing bad. And I have time, I'm only 25. But it's like, if you start investing at 25 versus 35, that could easily be $100,000. In that 10-year time span, you just lost $100,000. Same thing when you're in your 30s. I think once you get married and you start to build your family, or maybe even if you're not married, start thinking about multiple streams of income. A lot of us, we got a good job and we're going to stay with that good job. But gone are the days where people stayed with the company for 35 years and retired and lived a happy life. So you have to think about what is a different avenue for you to make money. Start tapping into your interests or start tapping into things that you're good at, and how can I turn this into a business or a side hustle? I love teaching personal finances. I love talking about it. I'm sure you guys can get that. Like, I'm all excited and I love it. So for me, I'm kind of like, well, I don't want to charge people to do this. My husband had to have a real serious conversation with me about it, because I helped people for 5 years and never charged a thing. No matter what age, and you're never too young, you're never too old. What do you do good? How can you make money from it? Now, if you have money, what can you be invested in? you got to start thinking about multiple streams of income, because we can't just rely on our jobs anymore. One thing 2020 has taught us is that you can only rely on yourself and God at this point in time, right? So you really have to just start thinking about, how can I keep making money? Like, how can I just keep the money coming in? What you decide to major in, if you decide to go to college versus, I know so many people who went to college because they felt like they had to, didn't want to be there, probably have, almost $100,000 in debt, and they're not even doing what they went to college for. I think if you're in your 40s and 50s and you don't have a retirement plan, you have to get one. And you have to be very aggressive with it, some type of IRA, Roth IRA, and really start investing. I was having this conversation with my mother, who started out in her teaching career late. So she's going to have to work a lot longer to be able to get a pension and everything. What is your plan? When do you want to retire? What kind of house do you want to have? What type of life you want to live? So I can start to help her, build that plan and aggressively start to save and invest and put her money where it needs to be so she can have the retirement that she wants.
Talking about investments, is there some type of golden rule that screams, invest in me?
I think that you have to. So investing, and to be honest with you, I am not that great at it. I'm glad that I have the husband that I have, because he's an engineer. He's very technical. I'm more emotional. There's no crystal ball. And there's really no right or wrong. Think about your goals. If you want to be an aggressive investor, do it all. You take your chances. Our age right now, we can be a little aggressive because we have time to recover. We have to be more forward thinking and stop thinking about the now. Where is the world going to be 10 years from now? So what can I invest in that we know is probably going to be around 10 years from now? Think about where the world is going. And if you see something that's like, that's going to be big in 5 years, you may not get a great return on your investment immediately. But if you think about where it's going to be in 5 or 10 years, and 10 years from now, you're going to be 40, and that extra 100,000 going to be looking good, 10 years from now, then you do it. Apple, Microsoft, you can name them, Facebook. When these companies first went public, they were like for nothing. All of those people who invested, they are living large right now, and good for them. So we have to be the next ones. 10 years from now, we can be sitting down having a glass of wine and talking about how we invested in some startup and now we're big balling out of control.
When it comes to investments, is there an amount of money that's too small to invest?
I think it depends on what you want to do, especially if you're just dibbling and dabbling. Take a couple of $100 and buy a couple of stocks and see what happens. Learn the market, learn what your style is, what your approach is going to be. If you get some type of inheritance or you come into a large sum of money, I would never recommend someone take $10,000 and go and invest it in the stock market. No, you got to learn it. And yeah, there are books and things like that you can read, but experience is the best teacher. I encourage some people who got that $1,200 stimulus check, people who still had their jobs, and they would ask me, what did I do with this? Well, maybe if you want to get into investing, start with that. Or maybe if you didn't have your emergency savings, start with that. This was $1,200 that you weren't expecting to get. Either you can put it someplace where you really want it, or you start investing.
Bringing us from kind of big picture investing to like smaller picture, how do I just come up with a monthly budget?
I think what you have to do, Alex, honestly, is first take inventory of where you're spending your money, what you're spending your money on. And then you make a budget based on, what are your expenses, income versus expenses. It's actually fairly easy to make a budget. It's sticking to the budget that's the problem for most people. There are so many different templates online. There are so many different apps. Then you want to see what your income is. I think, for people who are in a job that pays a salary, what your income is going to be, what your stable income is going to be every month. If you have additional streams of income and that ebb and flows, depending on your production output, I would still do the budget based off of what you're going to have. Start there. You make, $50,000 a year. Each of your paychecks is, let's call it $1,600 after taxes. Then you start there. That's your income. Anything else is extra. but you want to make sure that you do your budget based off of the income that you know is coming in, your stable income. Then you start listing your expenses. So you want to do your essentials. What do you need to live? So you have your rent, you have your utilities, you have your food. Then you go to transportation, right? If you have a car payment, if you have, your gas, nothing is too small to budget. If you pay for iTunes, that's a line item on your budget. If you pay for Netflix, that's a line item on your budget. Or if you want to, make it one big category and call it subscription, you got to figure out what works for you. Like I mentioned, everyone is different. They're driven different. Some people are more disciplined than others. Some people can take $100 to the grocery store and spend $100. Some people will take $100 to the grocery store and spend $300. So you have to, recognize the type of person that you are and then put a plan together accordingly.
Instead of buying all the wine and chocolate I want, I'm reminding myself of the body I want. So I'm not only trying to go to the grocery store, but I'm like, Isabella, you don't need a box of cookies every day.
But it's about your goals. So you're tying it back to what I said from the very beginning. It is about your goals. If you have clear and defined goals, it makes it so much easier to stick to your budget.
You mentioned this earlier, and it's definitely something that really trips me up. So I'm sure there are other Alexes out there who also struggle with this. But I will definitely find, especially with COVID, I'll find super tiny excuses to spend money to make myself feel better. And I'll get DoorDash. And I'm like, it's $20, it's fine. But then when you get DoorDash every week, even once a week, $20 is $20. It's a good chunk of change. And then when that little hit of dopamine or serotonin or whatever from DoorDash wears off, then it's well, what if I just bought those bike shorts that I've been looking at? They're only $30.
Yeah.
And it's just little tiny, $30 is $30, but it's not like you're making these huge purchases to slap a Band-Aid on your feelings. You're making small purchases to slap a Band-Aid on your feelings, and they really add up.
What we do is we have an allowance. That's also a part of our budget. From every paycheck, I'll take $250, he'll take $250. That's your money to do whatever it is that you want to do that does not pertain to the operations of this household. If I want to go get my hair done, if I want to go, get my, nails done, stuff like that, my waxes, whatever it is that I need for my TLC, that's what I spend that money on. So if you know that you like to treat yourself, that's okay. Just budget for it. You have some people who will make you think that you have to save half of your paycheck or you have to save everything that you own. Your personal finances is personal and it's for you. If you're saving and you're reaching your financial goals and you want to take $500 a month to treat yourself, to make yourself feel good, you do that. Don't let anybody try to make you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Hey, if you need DoorDash, sis, go get DoorDash. Order it if that's what you want. But the thing is I always ask people, are you achieving your other financial goals? Because you can do both. It's not one or the other. You can definitely make both happen. You just can't, go overboard. You don't want to live an unhappy life and you have $50,000 in your savings account, but you're eating a cup of noodles.
Would you say there's a good time for someone to seek financial advice or a financial advisor? Is there a specific amount of money that they should have or where they should be in their career or age? Is there a good time?
I would like to call myself a financial educator, not so much a financial advisor, because I wouldn't, kind of advise people in stocks and stuff because people will be really mad at me. More so like a financial educator. It should be an ongoing thing. It's never like this one point in time. I think most people kind of have that epiphany where they're like, all right, it's really time for me to get my stuff together. And that's going to be at different ages for everyone. But I do think that once you get into your mid to late 20s, I personally want to work with kids in high school because I think, if you're more proactive and you start teaching financial literacy and financial education at a younger age, you can prevent a lot of getting into crazy amounts of student debt, getting all of these crazy credit cards and all of that stuff. But I think a really good age to really start focusing on your finances is when you get that job that's paying you big girl money. When I started my very first job out of college, I was making over 50 at the time, $50,000 a year. At the time, that's big girl money. I've never seen money like that before. So at that point, that's where you really want to start seeking that advice and that advisement, because you want to know, well, what should I be doing? And a lot of us didn't have that. I know growing up in a Black household, we just didn't have those types of conversations. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about, you know, politics and things going on in the world, and how you should be, you know, an activist and you should stand up for what's right and all of this other stuff. So plenty of education, just not financial education. So to answer your question, there's no prime age, but I think when you get to that point where you are making more money than you've made before, it's time to start seeking advice to make sure that you are making your money work for you. A lot of times we let our money run us. We need to run our money.
What is the most common mistake that you see people make with their money? And what is the best piece of financial advice that you could share with them?
I think it would be the retail therapy. People run into money and the first thing that they want to do is spend it or buy something with it. I always laugh because, you know, growing up, I would hear, you know, in my family, people got a tax refund. Now, where I grew up, you got a tax refund. That was kind of like the government giving you money. But again, it's the lack of education, right? Because it's really not the government giving you money. It just means you overpaid in taxes and they're giving it back to you. I didn't know that at the time. And so the first thing that people would do is talk about what they're going to do when they get this money. And it was never, I'm going to invest it. It was never, I'm going to like buy a property. It was never, I'm going to pay down my student loans or pay down my debt. I think that that's the biggest mistake that people make is, you know, spending their money on things that they want, but they may not necessarily need, while there are other things they can be doing with it, like paying down debt. I'm all about you going to buy your Louis bag. But if you're about to spend $1,000 on a Louis Vuitton bag, but you have a credit card debt over $5,000, to me, that's a problem, and you don't have your priorities in line.
Are there any misconceptions you would like to clear when it has to do with personal finances?
To have a financial educator or a financial advisor, that it costs a lot of money. It does not. It does not cost a lot of money. Another thing, you're too young to buy a house. You're too young to start investing. You're too young to have a 401k. Or if your company does have a 401k, you're set. No, you're not set. You know, you can't depend on, you can't just have one stream of income, just like you can't just put all of your eggs in one basket. But again, if you have your goals and you know what you want out of life, I would have a 1-year goal, a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal. What does that goal look like for you professionally, personally, how you want to get involved in your community? If you want to be an entrepreneur, we should have financial goals for all areas of our lives, because all areas of our lives are impacted financially. Bank of America or Chase or something like that, you need to get their savings account. No, you're not getting anything from it, you know? Gosh, there are so many myths out there. In order to build credit, you have to have multiple credit cards. Get yourself one good credit card with a good limit, keep using it, pay it off every month, pay your statement balance so you're not paying any interest. You're going to build your credit. Pay your bills on time.
If I want to build my credit and I get a credit card, do I ever have to use it?
You do. It's not a bad question. It's not a silly question at all, because it's all about credit utilization too. So you have 2 cards, ultimately with a $10,000 credit limit. Let's say you have a balance of $2,500 on each of those cards. So right now you have a credit limit of $10,000 and you have the debt or a balance of $5,000. That means your credit utilization is at 50%. You should always keep your credit utilization at least at the very highest 30%. So you shouldn't use more than 30% of the credit that's allotted to you. So you get another credit card and that credit limit is $10,000. You just decreased your credit utilization. So you've increased your credit score, possibly, because now the amount of debt you have to the credit allotted to you is less. I think credit is good, and having a good credit score in this country is needed. Your credit score is like your financial report card. When you go to apply for things, your credit history, even something as getting a new cell phone line or getting internet, they run your credit because that is your financial resume. So it is very important that you know, have credit, but you use it responsibly and you take care of it.
Kweyah, you are such a powerhouse. This has been an unbelievable conversation. I've learned so much. I know I can speak for Isabella as well when I say that we're so happy that we got to have you on. If you could share kind of 5 key takeaways that you would like our audience to know about their personal finances coming out of this conversation, what would those 5 be?
5 takeaways. You're never too young to start getting your personal finances in order. The younger you start, the better off you would be because you're going to start to develop good habits. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to make the right decision, but you'll think twice about it. The second thing is take inventory of your finances. Understand or know where your money is going. The third thing is to set your financial goals. I don't care how small, I don't care how big. And make sure they're realistic. Make sure you can put a time frame on it. Have a conversation with yourself about your personal finances and face your situation. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult and sometimes it's ugly and it makes you want to cry. I've been there, but the best thing that you can do is face it, take it head on, and then start taking action to get to where you want to be. Because the more you ignore it, the more debt you're going to get into, the more, bad financial decisions you're going to make. And you don't want to be 40 or you don't want to be at a retirement age and not in a good place. The last takeaway, get an accountability partner. And that accountability partner is not going to always be your financial advisor or your financial educator. Find that one person who's going to be like, do you really need that? Because we all talk to our friends about the things that we want to buy, right? And you always have your friends, you have the cheerleaders, right? That's going to be like, yeah, girl, yes, go get that wig or, go buy that Louis bag or whatever it is. But, you also want to make sure that you keep the people around you that's going to keep it real and that's going to tell you, like, Isabella, no, that's not a part of your goals. We had a conversation last month and you said, you want to put a down payment on a house. Make sure that person is not someone who's going to make you feel bad. This person is going to be your partner. Like they are just as passionate about your goals as you are.
Kweyah, I never thought there was a world where I would be pumped after talking about personal finances. So thank you for not only having some of the best energy that we could ever ask for, but for truly educating us. Thank you for being a part of all of the magic of Upswing.
Thank you for having me. As I said, I'm really passionate about this and I hope, your viewers and your listeners learn something. And as I mentioned before, finding that person who speaks to you and speaks to your soul is important. And that may not be Kweyah Cook, right? But I definitely recommend if you are looking to fix your finances and you want someone who you can listen to their podcast or you can view their content, go and find that person. And I'm telling you, it'll change your life. 2 ladies are doing with this podcast during this time where people are just needing to see 2 beautiful young women doing something great and bringing all of this knowledge about so many different categories. It is amazing. And I'm so glad that you're doing it. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And if there's any way that I can support, your endeavors, Alex, you too, in any way, please let me know.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.